So there's some ideas about care so that we can discuss that concept. The idea of care is an important topic in medical humanities and both doctors, paramedical staff, and scholars are concerned that care is a very important concept. And in some sense, it's a very unproven. We all want to be cared, but we want to care and we want to be cared. But the idea is that with this concept, so it will be available to us. That's what. And before I start, there's something which I wanted to share with you that not connected with this. It's about reading a Malayalam book, which I think is absolutely crucial for scholars in medical humanities. Anybody has read Rajashree's book, Artharayagam? Rajashree, the Malayalam novelist who wrote Dasharini and Kalyani. And it's an amazing book on the question of medical cure. Satrayam is a place where somebody who is born, maybe now paternally as a transgender, is treated to become a male for a pass a test. Right? So it's a peculiar patient who is in a very ambiguous zone, and the treatment is not for suffering. And this particular place is taught between various states. It's almost a recreation of the story of Shikandi in Mahabharata. So, but it's a terrain where it's in a state, the cure happens in a place where there is no stable political power. Right? So, it's very interesting for those of you who want to think about what it will be in medicine, serious therapy, and knowledge. That novel also treats medicine as a knowledge component, cognitive enterprise, to be practiced outside the idea of state. So it's entirely unrelated, but I thought I shouldn't leave this place before sharing the excitement of reading this nearly classical working. So the question about care, again, I started thinking about care as an issue when I faced the prospect of living a life without taking the COVID vaccine. Right? So for me, it was never a question about what is the justification, why didn't you not take? Right? We have the answer from that problem. Right? We value individual liberty, whatever, etc. The state is imposing. And I don't think, I never thought about freedom in those terms, right? Nor as a paid employee of the Indian state ever, liking the Indian state. And also it didn't have a question about whether modern science is modern medical science is scientific. As I shared with you earlier, that whether medical science is never relevant, it's never been a relevant question for me to approach medicine. And most of the time, at least in the last 15 years, I've been treated by quacks, right? And I cannot get treatment from a modern medicine quack because there are no quacks in modern medicine. Every modern medicine expert you meet is already certified. Hope there will be a time where modern medicine also will be practiced by amateurs and quacks. But now we don't have. So, that way for me, it was a question about, not what I worried about consequences, whether the vaccine is really tested, consequences. I don't think, like I take other traditions where there is no clarity about consequences. So it is, consequences are not, and those days I thought whatever I collected information based on the trials which happened and the meta-analysis that happened, I thought the advantage of the vaccine will definitely be more than disadvantages. But still one doesn't take the vaccine. But that conviction today I don't have. Right now we have all kinds of scholars have come out about vaccine trials, so we cannot really say that. But still, at least that was never a consideration for me. But for me, the rational question was, if you don't take vaccine, then what are the rational inferential relationship to which you are going to be committed? Basically, how do you live a life if you are not vaccinated. That is where the rationale, not like is it justified if I am called in front of a court of law, do I have justified? And I understood this predicament as an act of care. How do you we understand when the society accepted that taking vaccine is your show of care? How do you lead a life, unvaccinated life, but as an act of care? Because when I don't take a vaccine, I am signing on to two things. I am signing on that I will die. There is a high probability of me dying and high probability of me killing someone. So I'm signing up that I will be the cause of my own death and the cause of others. Right? Now, how do you elaborate this peculiar situation as one of a caring life to others? When you have another model of life is there. And now we know that there has been an Australian study about the behavioral patterns of post-COVID societies, where they have now, by global studies, their conclusion is that our appropriate COVID behavior was not led by concern for one's of life or governed by the concern for other people's lives. Right? It was an imitative behavior. We just did what other people did. Right? And so they are the another statistical study, but the results is interesting. So that was one. So that when one realized that one is actually signing up for a life where you don't want to belong to the humanity as whose only political goal or primary political goal is survival. Right? That is what the COVID ideology was. You have to be alive in order to live, in order to do politics, etc. Right? So you don't want to sign up to humanity whose primary end is survival. Can that be a caring life? Is there a model of care we can think about like that? Second, the two incidents in another occasion I shared with some of you that see, I teach in IIT and we had a demonstration of care there. In IIT, in the last few years, a lot of students commit suicide. So one of our Dalit students committed suicide. So the IIT was very concerned because already a Dalit student is intellectually weak because he came through reservation. And now when we commit suicide, he is also mentally weak. Right? So the suicide is almost seen as illness. Right? Yes, illness. And IIT's response was immediate to strengthen our psychiatric department. Right? The act of care was being just employed so many psychiatrists. Numbers. And the students then, that was a very, one of my colleagues thought that it's a very caring gesture to do. And, but the students complained that the psychiatrists don't give them any time. They just want to go there to talk, but the psychiatrists in 2 minutes dismiss them. In fact, one of our common friends and teacher, P.R.K. Rao, once said the problem about modern medical situation is that doctors don't have time and patients don't have patience. Right? So this is the situation in which we do the care. Right? So that was one model of care which we had. We had something like suicide and suddenly therapeutic intervention. Right? And then suicide. Suicide is another thing. So you prevent suicide through two ways. One is that you establish a psychiatric care system. But then interestingly, one of the IITs patented a fan, right? Because they actually patented a fan where it will break if more than 25 kilos hang from that fan, right? So you can't commit suicide in those rooms because the fan is very weak. And apparently, statistically, I find apparently this is a fairly good solution. Even I trusted modern psychiatric care because humanity has not been very inventive in tools of suicide. We're still hanging, taking poison and all that. Right? So if you can actually prevent some of these things, you can just, at least obvious ways of suicide you can do. So this is a peculiar care situation I faced. Another thing which occurred to my own institution was that there is a well accepted care system in modern society is called security. Right? You try to move into Kerala, people will tell you they will offer you a house in a gated community. That's an act of care that your life is looked after. Right? So IIT also now we have a lecture hall complex where even students who enter for our lecture, we have to show the evidence. Right? So 8 o'clock we teach and then the whole battery of security personnel standing or checking everybody's identity. So I was asked them, why are you checking it? They said, हम classroom में terrorists को घुसना नहीं देंगे. Like they are preventing terrorists from entering our 8 o'clock class. Students don't come in when the terrorists. So what happened is once that the professor, who is looked very young, he was rushing to his class and they insisted on ID. So the professor said, I've been teaching you for some years. They said, no, you have to show your ID. And he slammed the security guy. And the security guy fell unconscious. He had to be admitted in the hospital. And the whole campus, which is very angry campus, rose in support of the only provisionally they will recognize. And that's a security person. They started with the powerful professor slapped a very weak and body and issue raised again. That will give you an information about the only security is the only way. So this is another paradigm for care which we have. And another situation, there are some snippets I want to share with you, just to thinking about it. This happened during the Vietnam War. During the Vietnam War, the American army was in Vietnam. And the situation of Vietnam is people were very miserable. And one of the villages occupied by the American army, very poor, and the children were susceptible to all kinds of illness and epidemics. So the American army, moved by genuine care for the people, got vaccines, and I think it was diphtheria vaccines was given to the children. Now the Viet Cong revolutionaries came to know about this. They went to the village and chopped the left hands of all the children and piled it in front of the American family. Now, how do we understand this? Is it that I'm sure in our TV shows we will say that it's heinous crime and everybody who committed the crime should be punished. Right? But do we also notice the revolutionary fervor of an army who had to do this amount of cruelty? Right? They thought that was a very misplaced show of care when a war is going on. You can't do this just because you want to. So how do you see this? Should we totally condemn the view of the revolutionaries, or every revolutionary action involves these kinds of absolute cruelty, which goes against our every sense of care? I think our notion of care also we should pitch it, to a situation like this if you want to open it for discussion. And after a couple of days, we have been talking about this whole debate with Beard on evidence. It was not to question the credentials of a science or as skeptical. The issue is that we wanted to understand what is the nature of experience in the hospital, in the medical situation. What is the experience? Is evidence an adequate description of the experience? Are there experiences which cannot be caught by this evidence? It's again not the modern medicine is handled. They work with the notion of evidence, which is so crucial to their practice. But the whole practice involves all kinds of other experience. Now, to get an idea about last day, I think we have lectured by Mathu on our idea about body. The idea is that do we have non-medical knowledge about our body, which is so essential for the body to be a body, right? And is there any way in which medical science can respond to it, right? It's relevant for medical science to constantly think. That's what medical humanities has been doing. So this is also the context where we want to perhaps look at care. Right? There's a phase. What is this experience of care? There's a certain way of doing it. That is, the doctors actually do handle evidence But we all know that it involves suffering, it involves more richer experience than else, but it has no cognitive value. It has no scientific value, only evidence. So we will lead to another part of the clinic to address these other experiences. Let's have nurses, let's have people who will do all this compassion and care and that. But we doctors, we are not equipped to deal with it. Like, so the whole idea doctors don't have time in that we only have that 2 minutes to deal with it, and that's very important to persuade. But we accept that there are other components, so that the nurses and paramedical staff, etc. The classical distinction between facts and value. Right? We can only handle experiences which have adequate some notion of facts, but all values are richer thing, but they have no cognitive value. Right? So one thing which we could really think about is that is this care involves any cognitive value? Is there anything to know in order for you to care? Also, is there anything you need to care in order for you to know? Right? Both these questions are very important. Whether caring involves any knowledge or also knowledge involves any care. Now we say no, knowledge doesn't involve any care because it can only do with facts. But care doesn't involve any knowledge because it's all matter of emotions and sympathy and empathy and all that. And that's also when you really look at the clinic, what is the place? What is a hospital? Is it a hospital where sick people are taken care of? Not exactly. It is a place where disease discloses the truth. Right? It's artificially set up like a laboratory. The doctors don't go to the residents to be able to treat us, right? But that is why the doctor-patient interaction is so short. Because that is the place where you are called upon, and there is a way of speaking, there is a way of documentation, there is a way of observation through which illness have to speak its truth. Illness can suffer you outside the clinic, but inside, and that doesn't need much time, right? They have now set up the procedures so intelligently that it takes 1 minute for the illness to disclose its truth. Now, there is a lot of time in. Then you need to have all these supporting systems, steering system. That's one way to understand nurses, bed, and all that stuff. But the clinic should be seen as so. Counter to this, you have anti-medical people trying to say, like Ivan which calls hospitals, iatrogenic machine. Right? This is the place where you collect and distribute illness. That's what the clinic is. Right? And then they also have this strange data. I think if you really push for data, that's very strange. I mean, there is reasonable data to say that whenever doctors go on strike, the mortality rates increase. Now, what is the value of this? I don't think it's there are people like Foucault when he gave the lecture said, I don't want to use these kind of stupidities against modern medicine. But that's not that we are interested in. So that's also a question about the clinic. It also involves a question about understanding the body. Right? This is our idea about body being a machine, right? Where the body, each organs have its functional role. Is it an adequate understanding of body? I think when Madhu's talk happens, I think in the many traditions you will find the body. What makes my body different from this table is a certain knowledge it has about itself, right? And any description about the body function, etc., need to involve this irreducible knowledge the body has itself. Because I can distinguish my body from table and my body from the mountain's body. This is not minimally my body is capable. It also has many other cognitive things whether we should take that. So in a care situation, the first cognitive problem you face is that how do we know other people's suffering? Like how do I know other people's pain? How do I know other minds? Right? Quite possible that you are all, except me in this room, everybody is all. Right? Is there any way I can really make right? And many philosophers have debated it for centuries, and we don't have any evidence. Like, it's like there's no evidence that you are not in your last name dream. There's absolutely no. So that's philosophers that if you want to justify knowledge, etc., just have fasting here that you're no way to justify to me whether you are not in your last name dream. The same way people say that look, there is no way we can really find out others are not wrong. But we all know that others are not wrong. Right? In every interaction with you, I have reiterated the fact that I know that you are not wrong. Right? And suppose at some strange moment it turned out that one of you turned out to be a robot, it will be a immense sadness for me. Right? And we have some friends here, you must have seen that scene in movie Blade Runner. Right? Blade Runner is about the world is full of robots. We created them, but they are big nuisance. We sent them to the planet, but 5 of them come back because they think that problem between man and machine, even machines have a 5-year short lifespan, human being have a long lifespan. Anyway, they come back and we human being are scared, and there is a detective who can actually distinguish humans from robot. So he has been employed to identify this 5 robots. So now there is a woman robot, and I think Ruthie. So she thinks that she's a human being, she's capable of emotions, she has memory, etc. So the detective proves to her that look, you are actually a machine. Your memories are actually the memory of the programmers, doctors' memories. You are just a machine. And she breaks into tears. At that point, the detective falls in love with her, knowing fully well that look, you are a machine. And that's the human ability to acknowledge humanity in others. It's a knowledge. Right? It's not like you ask me a test or anything, but another kind of knowledge. But this is how do I know other people have pain? Right? So traditionally we thought that we actually draw analogy. Right? I have headache, right? So I treat whether anything looks like to me. Right? Now this paradigm, if you know, it just doesn't work because when I know that you have headache, what I have is not that there is something generally called headache, which I also have, you also have, but I know that there's your headache. This headache is not mine, but yours is signed on that headache. That's how electricity is. It's not like I project something. That's what people say, way in which imagination and projection techniques are used by which I have. And we have never sat down and found out ever, okay, we will all these things are headache, these are toothache, none. And the idea that it is occurring to somebody who is not me is the what is picked up in this, right? So when we have things like empathy, when we understand other people's suffering, it somewhere involves some familiarity with the knowledge that there are other people headaches, there are other people pains in the world. Right? Now that is possible only if I have some kind of clue about it. Right? And I already have some kind of clue about it. For example, I can only see this side of the table. I don't see the other side of the table. And I see your bag there, I can only see the outside of the bag. Right? Now, do I really worry about whether that bag has an inside? I don't worry. Is it why is it because all the bags I have seen so far have been inside. So it's a probable guess. We will do an RCT and say probable guess that this bag also has an inside. No, I see bags with insides. Right? I have only seen cables with other sides. That's the way I can see. Like it's not that when I turn around and I come with the great surprise, oh, this is a cable with the other side. Right? It's because I perceive cables and bags in the world which is shared by all of you. Right? I have prior familiarity to this world where cables and bags appear. right? So that way my perception of everything other people are into. Right? That's one reason why I can say that we is only part of a we that we perceive. But that's also not adequate. Then I am saying that all of you are in somewhere like, but all of you are specifically someone. It's not that all of you belong to a category for people who are not me. Right? That's not real me. I also perceive you as individuals, specifically others. Right? And see, we all have this idea about now the kind of postmodern attitude is that there are many cultures, there are many lifestyles, we should be tolerant to everyone, etc. So we want to be tolerant to other cultures, provided they stay at a distance. But if you encounter me as a specific other, I get traumatized. Right? That's what the American West always tells you. You are all great culture, but stay in your countries. Don't apply for visa and come with your dirty, hard, sweaty bodies. Right? Now they have enough. Right? They are saying that we don't want you guys there, but we will do our cultural studies, etc. We will say that you are all other cultures, in everybody has a right, but don't come here as a specific other. But very often suffering comes not only that it belongs to others, but suffering comes to me. That's the most difficult thing. That it comes to me as the suffering of some specific, some absolute other. Right? The headaches of other people are just some absolute others' headaches. Right? So, that's why there are some kinds of, there are certain mental situations which is very difficult. Just the other day, a young friend of mine made a movie on postpartum depression. And the idea that the childbirth is associated with depression, that movie ends by saying that don't try to understand that person. Just if you can be around that person, do it. But there's nothing like understanding the person. So there is something about the other which is not amenable to my understanding, in the sense of shared things, etc. But still I can respond to this, suffering. So we have to somehow clarify these various sense of others. Right? And our body itself has a sense of other. I have for example, my own knowledge about me. Right? In some sense, it involves already others. Like we know that there is something called a mirror stage, right? A child doesn't refer to itself as I, it refers to itself as Sunny. But by 18, when we see a mirror image or something like that, the child realizes that if they see the dogs or animals don't have any affinity for their mirror images. They will smell and they will see. But I get caught up with my image, right? So I realizes as me in an image which is actually not me. After that, I can use the first person pronoun. And first person pronoun I is so difficult because only I can use I to refer to myself, but all of you are going to use I to refer to yourself. Right? For a child, it's a traumatic thing. But the child can actually do these things, right? You can understand others are somebody who is, it's a very bodily knowledge. Because when the child looks at the mirror, other animals think that things happen there. But only the child thinks that things happening here. And here is what darkness. I don't know what is here. I can't see my own face, right? But it can turn back and grasp that something interesting is going on here, right? This is a very valid knowledge which is going to have the child, right? And we also have more difficult perception of them. Right? For example, tickling. Right? Can we tickle ourselves? No. Right? My body needs to be very sure about that the tickling comes from somebody else. It's a bodily, and there are various neurological experiments to fool the body. If my own hand movements, if it can be sent through some tricky mechanism, and even if I am touching it, if my brain can get the voice somebody else, actually the tickle will work for it. So these kinds of knowledge with the body, I think we need to have an idea. And the other thing is the idea of justice. The care is morally very complicated because care is in some tension with justice. If they don't go together very easily. That this is something which feminists, right? In fact, this German moral development psychologist Paul, he did some experiments and he came up with this stages of moral development. Right? For a child first try to manipulate other people, right? Cries and then they get milk. And if it smiles, then people are happy and all that. It's the manipulating. Simply manipulating. Later that the other people have likes. Right? When I cry, it is other people are disturbed. That is why they experience. So I do that. After a while, I realized that no, in this house there are some conventions. Right? Father is a big guy. There are certain things I should ask my father. There are certain things I should ask my mother. Later, the child realizes that look, everybody in this house is an human. Right? There are basic some rights which everybody has. There are some principles of fairness in this house. So this is the way moral progress happens. Highest level is where you have formal rules like fairness. Like in this room, all of you come from various religious and moral motivations, but we have come to of fairness, and each of you will get a chance to speak and all that. So this is the height of love. Now, Carol Gilligan, this feminist, she questioned it. She said, look, this is a totally biased European male, because all the data said were white male children. He says women have a different way of doing it. Women notion of morality are not driven by contentless formal rules, but by attention to specific people. Right? So she has this peculiar dilemma called the Haynes dilemma. Like Haynes was a guy, his wife was very ill, and he didn't have money to buy medicine. Right? So he asked this question about stealing medicine, robbing a medical store. Right? And should he rob the medical store in order to support his wife? So when this moral dilemma is presented to a male audience, they will immediately start worrying about what is right, whether stealing is right, stealing for some genuine causes is right, what is right, is it a violation of right, etc. But when it is presented to a female audience, their question was, look, if he actually steals, who will look after the wife? Right? That was the most abiding concern of the women, not the other abstract thing about the formal rule of property rights will be violated. Or she had said, suppose if you are the office, if there is a male boss, the male boss will come up with some restrictions applicable to all. We should come at 9:30 and we will follow. But if somebody wants to bring a child from school, want to go around, it's immediately a violation of rules. Either you have to find his favor or compensatory off and all that stuff. But he said if the woman is the thing, she would actually allow a person who wants to pick up the child to go and request others to work more. She doesn't find that there is anything unfairness involved. This is the morally ethical thing to do. So, hence, they gave this argument that care is, as an ethical principle, is different from justice, which is based on contracts, fairness, equality, autonomy, etc. Whereas care is something which is, first of all, there is no contract. The caring relationship is a non-contractual relationship. And there is no equality because caring relation often involves somebody who is powerful, parent, child, doctor, patient, somebody who is powerful, and somebody who is not. Right? And there is no autonomy because one person is dependent on the other in some sense. Right? And the other is that it is always attending towards a specific human being. Its needs are important, not anything called general. Generalizable claims are not its object domain. What suits the particular person in that particular opinion. Another thing is that it has a peculiar kind of self-awareness. Care. caring itself is a very self-aware because every caring comes on expiry date. There is no lifelong care. Right? Caring has to really end at some point, otherwise it becomes dependent. In some case of some chronic illness, it might go infinite. But everybody knows that's not a love. Right? It's not something of content. It is going to end at some point or the other. In fact, some the questions of knowledge and care, one of the beautiful books which has come out recent past is Brinda Dalmia's reading of Mahabharata or caring to know. So she talks about these stories where there is a story about a bird which is as a nest in a building in a tree, and the tree gets very old and decay and it's dying. But all the birds have left this. But this one bird doesn't leave them because it cares for that. It is, for so many years it has given me actually leave that place. So the tree will be alone. It comes back every day. So finally, I think Vishnu or somebody realizes this and appears and gives Shaba Moksha to both the bird and the tree. What is important here is that God realizes that look, to be a genuine creation, it has to end. Right? Otherwise, if we leave it to this tree and the bird, they will go on forever. That's how there was this Yudhishthira's dog, which after everybody leaving, that dog pursued Yudhishthira. There again, the God will appear and give Shava because it just terminates at some point. Right? So this is also, it's not a blind care. Blind has this blind caring doesn't want to become justice, it doesn't want to become martyrdom too. Right? So it comes with that kind of another kind of tension in care is with choice. Right? The ethics of care and ethics of choice. Right? This is doctors sometimes tell you that look, these are your options, this is your choice. That's an absolutely careless situation to come. Right? The caring involves that somebody takes various initiatives, and it's not one of, because justice often says that it's one of its alertness is that we will not allow any exploitation, we will not allow any oppression. That's a very valid thing. But the attentiveness and care is not sort of geared towards that. Right? And also, it cannot be a choice relationship with what is the best option for a patient. The disease shouldn't have happened to that patient. That option is not available. Right? So the most interesting option from the situation is gone. Right? And then imagine a situation like you have an option between either taking the medicine and doctor's advices and living a suboptimal health, right? And having good food and drink and diet. What should I choose? Now, you can't even make sense of it as a choice because there are no criteria to deliberately. These are absolute choices, existential choices like that. Like there is no way. That way, in some sense, a caring, say, a consultation room is not a debating where people look at various choices, etc. And then another aspect of this caring relationship is, as I said earlier, the question about expiry date, a sense of temporality. Like for example, if I am caring for, if somebody falls unconscious, my caring demands a quick responsibility. Right? But let's imagine a situation like with, if my child is trying to tie the shoelace, right? What should I do if I'm a caring person? I can just jump in and tie the shoelace for the child, but that's very rude. Right? The child will never learn to tie the shoelace. So I have to wait. The school bus must be waiting outside, but caring, I just have to wait. Almost that meaningless time to do it for a future point. And also that care is in some sense has to be resulting to rejection. Right? That's one advantage of contributing to online courses. Right? You will never get to see rejection. Right? But if you really go and offer money to someone, somebody will say no. Right? And it has to be, that's this non-contractual nature is that you will have to take rejection into it. So then, what are the resources of this caring? Yesterday we talked about the doctor counting on trust, etc. One reason why we trust is that somebody cares for you. And what are the basis of care? And one basis of care is humility. Humility is almost like in fact, the first discussion I tried to say that humility is actually a big lie. Right. So it's not even counted traditionally as a good quality, but we can think about relational humility. Relational humility is this idea that not that I say I am ignorant. There are other people who even better than me. Right? Every situation involves that other people know. So the moment I am a cognitive agent, I am open to this possibility that other people know. In fact, Vandana Dalmia's book has this very nice story about one of the Indian monks, I forget the name. He was doing his tapas in order to get the ultimate knowledge. So one bird came and disturbed him. So he immediately made that bird into ashes. Right? And then he had problems and he was driven by guilt and all that. So then apparently the God came and said, see, only one person has an answer to your thing, and that's some housewife which is living far away. You have to go and ask her, and only that housewife has an answer. So he goes to this housewife. So housewife immediately says, I know, he was waiting for you. I know you will come. And he's a Brahmin, so he was very hungry lunchtime, so he wanted food. So she said, I will get you food. I think she doesn't turn up for a long. And then find out that in between her husband, and she served the husband first. Right? And so he asked him, why I am a Brahmin and it's curse from you if you serve your husband before me as a Brahmin. So she said, no, I care for my husband. I am not a bird. You cannot turn me into ashes. But my life is this, that I care for my husband. He will get my first treatment. So whoever is you are, you will get your, I know you are running after knowledge, but you will get your second treatment. So he said, look, I don't understand. Then she says, look, I can only explain. She actually have a long dialogue with me, so I can only explain this much. But if you want to really know about it, there is another person who is long away, a butcher. So he goes to this butcher who has this knowledge, and the butcher immediately tells him, and he is already Brahmin. So he said, look, he is not a shooter. So why are you killing animals? Isn't it sin? So he said that killing animals is a sin. I am not a shooter. If the shooter work, I shouldn't be doing it. But I have to take care of my parents. Right? To that, I will do anything. So I am doing it here. And you are infinite knowledge. Have you ever taken care of your parents? At that point, the monk really gets the ultimate knowledge. Now, what is the knowledge which he gets? What is the nature of that humility? I think it's not merely that there are other people who know better than you. It's also that there's no point to knowledge. There's no point to knowledge. The real thing this guy did is he cut off every relationship in his life and pursued knowledge. Right? In my view, what the story, which is it's not Brinda's reading, but my reading is that what he's saying is that this kind of pursuing knowledge as a separate activity. As we know, when we do research, we need to cut off from everyday other entanglements cognitively and in likely manner and do it. But we should know the conventional nature of these movements. Right? And we may have to sacrifice few things if you want to really find out something, you will have to give up something in your life. But to know that this is a groundless procedure, which is amenable to revision, and at some point somebody can just tell you the whole point is based because you didn't take care of your parents. In fact, other two people are saying that their actual knowledge is not pursued in this way. It existed with another relationship with life. Now, when you refuse to take this view, you need to have trust in something. That's when things like method comes in. Right? Whereas in my view, in actual science, what are techniques, right? That's what the physics department, they don't teach this research methods, and only in social department we teach, because the physicist have already techniques. He will get his answer. Anything come what may which lead you to his answer, he will do. But he won't say it's not methodologically or science is scientific because we do science. He will also do that rhetorically, but that's not very important for him. What they have is a set of techniques, not something called method. Right? So that's another thing is that fairness, justice is always a matter of method. Right? The symbol of justice is this woman who is, blindfolded and having a balance. So, what will be a figure for care? In fact, there's an interesting book on health by Enigma of Health by the German philosopher. And so, Georg Gadamer, who died at the age of 102, so proves that philosophy can actually give you a long life. And see, he gives the example of two people sawing a wood piece. Right? One person is on top, one person is on the bottom, and they are sawing the tree, the wood. So then what happens? There are no predetermined. Each one has to tune the movement according to the other, and both has to tune their movement according to the hardness of the wood. Right? And there's a kind of play which is going on there, but that play has to be responsive to each point what happens. Right? So that will be the kind of big difference between them. So one way is to look at the knowledge seeking to humility, but understand humility in the radical possible way. Right? Again, one way we can understand as scientists, we understand saying, look, we are not absolutely certain about our limits, but it is all a matter of probability. Right? There is some chance in everything. So then what we need to immediately do is rigorously formalize probability. Right? And I think I shared my view with you that if you rigorously formalize probability, then we'll have to conclude with Bayesian theorem that it is rational for me to hold that every new drug produced by modern medicine is ineffective. Right? Now, this is a standard point the doctor can also take. It's not like a skeptic. Imagine a doctor who is practicing, who is ready to hold that any new technique, I have reasonable thing that it won't is harmful or it doesn't work. Right? And then he will do the same thing. Right? But his conviction is this. Then you don't prescribe too many medicines and you don't subject your thing to too many stuff. And you also care involves respecting not the diseased body, but the disease itself. Right? You have to have a concept of disease where you have some respect for the disease. In other words, you will not practice a therapeutic routine by imagining a world without disease. We will miss diseases. Right? So can we think about that kind of a humility where we will say that we will not, right, the world without death. Right? We won't imagine. Right? And we are concrete. It's not because and personally I believe that in another 10, 15 years we might overcome the death business. Right? New chips and all will come, and I'm sure somebody will contribute to with reasonable continuity, then my memories and thought process will continue to live, right? And I will not have any problem with not having children because there will be many me's which will be going around. Which I think technology can already do it. It's our moral holding back is preventing us from. That's my guess from doing this. Already, like we are discussing disability studies, a lot of our faculties have been replaced by chips. Right? That's a very good thing for people with age, now color perception, movement perception, everything. Even if I can't do it, some chip will do it and respond to the situation. Like it's not like it will now feed everything to my consciousness. No, it will respond to the world as if there is somebody else who is living within me. Right? But even that it is, and another notion about, I will not go too much into it, which is the basis of care as something very ontological. It's not like care doesn't have to do with the way I know things, but in the way things are. Right? That's an ontological thing. Here, the most, I think, beautiful book is V.Sanil's Metaphysics and Politics of Compassion. You know, the whole Buddhist, we don't go into it in detail, the Buddhist philosophy, which actually questions the reality of everything we see around. Right? There is nothing. Right? Because the Buddhists have this whole logical argument saying that even causality is an untenable vision. Right? And there's nothing exists, nothing is real, but we have to hold that something real. I can't say that nothing is real. I'm sure lunch is very real. Right? I should be able to hold that nothing is real, but invite you and go and share lunch with you. Right? So I will attribute to Nisar a concept of ontological shyness. Right? So we really can't be confident in this world of things. They are actually their independence of my representation of them, right, is independent. Now, my belief in a modern cognitive agent is that there is a reality as it is represented by me. But I will be radical postmodernist and say there is no reality independent of my representation. Right? That's when I am very radical social scientist. I will say that all reality is a function of my representation. That reality is constructed, right? But still, there is some reality of my representation, their efficacy in it. But you can take a view where you say that both reality and representation are not these supports. Right? The shunyata, that's the Buddhist. And it is the Buddhist who gave us the greatest idea about compassion. How does compassion comes from this idea that there is no reality to anything, right? So that is compassion is an attitude by which you deal with these appearances, including the appearance of me, appearance of you, and appearance of things. So there are two models for them. One is an epistemological humility, that is a humility in the way I know things, or an ontological shyness, that is, I'm a bit shy in affirming anything in reality. These are two models which we need to really radicalize. That is one way to think that how much of you really mean this kind of stuff. And that's the time when we also see actually the human body. What is the health of the human body? Health of the human body is a silence of mind. Right? When the body is healthy, it doesn't scream. But only when illnesses begin to speak. Right? So somewhere we just need to respect the silence of this body. That also involves care. Like imagine somebody asking you every day in the morning, do you have a headache? Do you have a headache? Right? It will be too much of a disturbance. Right? So at some point there has to be an affirmation about the silence of the body. And I think this kind of ontological shyness and humility, I said, is actually, if you really want to understand, not the care of a suffering human living bodies. Why do we care then? Right? No human society leaves the dead people careless. Well, in fact, most respect is shown to the dead body, and there is all attempt to, preserve dead bodies and do everything to the dead body. So, how do you understand the care which we have towards? Is it just a projection that we take time to accept, we project them to be? That's not. In the workplace, there are procedures of postmortem which goes on. Even in the postmortem room, there is some procedural respect to the body. They don't treat it just like a body. Yeah. So, what is the source of this idea that we really care for dead people? And another specific kind of target of our pain is, care is often pain. I think we don't have time to go into it, but pain itself is a very, very difficult concept. We said, I have headache not in the way I have a car. If there's a certain difference, seems to be a difference in the way I have pain, and there seems to be a difference between having a certain pain and feeling that pain. Like, are they always, though there is a certain way in which I am not mistaken about my pain. I can't say that. I can say that I thought I had a car, but really I didn't have a car. The registration was not really properly. But I can't say that I have a headache, but actually I didn't have a headache, I had a toothache. It seems slightly incomprehensible to do that. So there seems to be some kind of validity of our claims to think. But at the same time, we know that pain is a very social phenomenon. There are different ways in which people treat pain. Right? There's a recent study about the cancer patient rooms in Africa, where actually people laugh. Whenever there is a patient comes to the cancer ward, everybody laughs. And the Western doctors find this totally inhuman behavior. And we also have so many rituals where pain is idealized, and the whole Christianity is the imitation of Christ's pain. And I think there is a story which once Scaria said that we were with a Mel Gibson movie, Passions of Jesus Christ was released. Kerala Christian church before Kerala story. They decided to screen this movie in some church on Sundays. But people were in Kerala were not very interested because that is long sequence of Gibson's suffering as Jesus Christ. But people were not very interested. So Scalia said apparently he had located a letter which is written by one of the early Portuguese. When they came here, they find that is already Christianity. So, but they wrote to Portugal saying that we also have Christians here, but these heathens are not moved by the suffering of our Lord as much as we are. So there's something about which this God suffering is not a big deal for us, but there are traditions where God suffering, you try to become by God by actually imitating his suffering. So how do we actually do with this pain? So there is something which is pain, which is internally affirmative, which I know it is. And the idea that all out of it is absolutely relative is something which is important. And here one thing is to some of these people who experiment radically with pain. And one writer I find is amazingly radical was Simone de Beauvoir. There was a sister of Herbert Weyl, a mathematician, a philosopher, and she died by the age of 34 due to self-imposed starving and TB. Now, she from the very beginning as a child, she was after suffering. When the World War I broke out, apparently she just left sugar. She said she wanted sugar. And then she became a Marxist. As soon as she became a Marxist, she didn't want to pursue academic career. She went and took a job as a worker in a factory. That was very strange. She comes from a wealthy background. She's an academic. But she said, no, if I am a Marxist, I have to work in this factory. And later, when the Second World War, I think, broke out, she demanded that she be sent to, first she worked as some spy for the Allies, and then she demanded that she will form a group of nurses, and she wanted to be airlift to the warfront. She said, I want to take care of people in the warfront. So there is this systematic approach, and there is something in her writing about caring is frightening. She says, when I look into the eyes of a poor man, I see the poetry of poverty. Is that I am fascinated by not by his suffering or his beautiful nature, but the sheer poetry in his house, which I appreciate. That's what caring for. No, this is a very difficult proposition. And this is a proposition, its other side is found by people in the Nazi camp. Right? There are these people called the Muslim, or they are called like that, like Samon. Right? And their job, some of them are Jews, Muslim Jews. Their job is to assist the Nazis in carrying dead bodies to the fire and all that. And the Nazis, they said, moment the government of justice which involved the Nazis used to remove the whole filling of the German Jews before they are burned. So there's a furnace where they will burn those teeth and melt those teeth and get the gold. Right? And I read an autobiography by a German judge where the case comes in front of him that on a period they were expecting 4.5 kilograms of gold extracted from the dying Jews, but there were only 3 kilos. Where did the 1.5 kilo go? There's a huge argument. Nobody is worried about they are burning people. Right? So this is a peculiar thing about justice, that we can actually worry about the whole case on this, but just remain, silent about it. So care would be something opposite. So this puzzle and people who actually carry these dead bodies, they can also be killed one day or the other, but they don't know. They are helping to kill their own. So people notice that there are later those who escaped from there was an absolute indifference in the eyes of these people. There's absolute, you see suffering so much that in your eyes there is an inhumanity. And somewhere, Simone Weil says, the glitter of inhumanity. The caring which goes to that extent of responding to this glitter, this absolute indifference. Somebody who is dead in himself, right? How much that speed is something. So this idea of empathy, which we started with, recognizing others, their specificity, etc. If you really pursue it, it leads us to this dangerous context in which. So what is it this person who is nurse, who is taking care of a chronically ill person in a palliative care? We have no account of what do we really think that they are still merciful and all that, but effective, alert caring, what is it glued on to? And just one more point I want to say is today caring happens, of course, in the market, right? You pay for all care services, they are all thing, and it's also very technologically intensive process, right? And how do we understand the role of technology in caring? Right? We often think that's a bunch of instruments, but the thing is, soon technology is going to take over this. Right? So what do we expect this machine caring? I just want to say one instance. This is the way Taiwan handled COVID. You know that Taiwan did not have an emergency declared, nor they had lockdown. But they very effectively handled it. So they had their digital minister was this transgender first minister called Andre Tang. She was she or him one. It was a real digital genius. So what she planned was that first time they decided that no emergency, life will go on as normal, but we will collect data, but we will not start any new data collection point from home. People can do it, right? People give mobile data about the places they visit, right? And this data will be accessed to amateur people in order to come up with contacts, right? So I can decide if I want to go to a music concert, what is the amount of people there, who are all the people going there. So it is totally amateur who do it, right? Stage and there is no point where all the data about any human being is kept. And every data about any human being is erased after 28 days. Right? So it allows people to contribute data and also manage their movement according to their safety, right? Using these things. There's no central agency comes into it. No procedure is done for the entire population. Right? Now, this, it's very important thing there was that apparently there were a lot of digital, there were fake news in there also. Right? In Taiwan, so one of the fake news that they are going to now make, if you go to a haircutting salon, then all your bank account will be seized because you are contributing to that, all your bank. There is no such law. So the Prime Minister himself came on another fake news. They actually wanted it, they decided to fight it with another fake news. They said rumor versus human. Right? So this guy said, he also, in his youth, he had lot of hair. Now he has become bald. And if you guys don't do your regular hair cutting, you will also become like me. You really don't want to become like me. And it became viral, and people suddenly realized that they should carefully go to a barber shop. So there is what they are actually, I'm trying to say is that what her idea was to develop a collective intelligence, which is care. It's not a top-down model, nor it is to care for individuals in some manner. And this is the time I want to leave you with this idea about what is care for community medicine. I think many of you are from community medicine. Right? How do you think about caring in a technologically intensive way? Right? So we today have two paradigms for caring. One is the community paradigm and the other is the immunity paradigm. Right? So we generally think about immunity things which are done over a community, but actually many of us are very uncomfortable with any notion of community. Right? So I was asking yesterday, maybe that why don't you use the word social? Like we said earlier, it was called social and preventive medicine, and you became community. So maybe it is, why did it become community? And you should know that think about human being as this kind of communities is very politically challenging, right? It's a very patriarchal community with traditional values, etc. That's not the kind of groups which any of us would like to build. Like we all want to question it and enlarge it and try to become, right? And then try to become what if we want to come out of it? Then we want to become individual, that's also nice. Right? Now anthropology says the word immunity and community has the word munis. Right? That's what the thing between immunity and community. Munis actually means a kind of uncontrolled giving. That's what munis means. Right? So communities were originally anthropologically understood as communities based on uncontrolled living, huge rituals, right? Huge feasts, huge wars, right? Which are uncontrolled. Nothing in that society would be done under a calculation. So individual was an immunity device of the society. Right? That's what, how do you prevent such a society from really become destructive? Then you have to come up with notions like individual. So today, so individual is, so you cannot say that what we bring community, then we will get individual. Reality is about some collective intelligence of care, which is more than community. Right? So then how do you That's why we need to look for vaccines or whatever it is. There will be efforts of immunity, like individually Monday, in which we form some kind of individual liking, rights, responsibilities, etc. in order to form this. Now, technology and caring demands us for another collective intelligence. How do we look at this newness and extend it beyond notions of orthodox community, etc.? That's one challenge which care and technology versus. I think it's